49ers beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, Eric Branch. Evan Giddings in for Matt Steinmetz alongside Daryl the Guru Johnson. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, guys. This might be my debut on your show.
It is, baby. It is. Yes, sir.
Obviously, some nerves coming in, a nice feather in my cap career-wise. But I know, obviously pressure, because if this doesn't go well, will there be a second call? We don't know.
I'm sure there will be.
Awesome.
A big fan of your work, and I feel like you're going to be okay. If anything, we need to be on our best behavior. But I want to start, Eric, with kind of what's gone down the last couple of weeks with the San Francisco 49ers. We'll get into training camp in a bit, but Kyle Shanahan, the accident that happened on July 14th, finally finding out about it 11 days later. And correct me if I'm wrong, but were you one of the people that was called into his office where he revealed that he was at fault for the accident that happened a couple weeks ago?
Yes, I was there.
What did you make of it? Kind of just take us through behind the scenes. Obviously, you guys got to see what Kyle Shanahan was like. To kind of take us through that day and that conversation and sort of what you gleaned from it. Based on everything that had happened beforehand.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty surreal environment, just because in modern pro sports, everything is fairly controlled. Everyone's at coaches are always going to be at a podium, and often the star players. It's not like back in the day where Tom Landry of the Cowboys would be talking to the locker room to a gaggle of reporters. So, so the setting was far different. It's Kyle Shanahan's office. No one is, has a cell phone. There's no video. It's 7 writers, kind of circled around his desk. He's behind his desk. There's John Lynch and the, 49ers PR guy, Corey Rush, kind of in the back. But, it certainly felt like Shanahan just speaking to 7 guys. And the first part was off the record, not because Shanahan said anything really that he'd later say on the record, but I think he just wanted to be able to talk freely, kind of, without having to have any sort of filter. So there's plenty of F's and in other words being used, just because he was really emotional throughout, because he felt, really guilty, for his, obviously his role in this accident. And so, again, it was, I've covered Kyle Shanahan since, he arrived in 2017, and, no one had ever seen him, obviously, like this. We're used to seeing him behind a podium and, with, specific talking points and all that, and this was not that.
Eric, let me ask you this, and maybe you can help me out. So many camp questions, but I just kind of want to get this off my chest. And I told my partner this. You mentioned Kyle's been here since 2017, and the 12-win season, the road playoff win in Philly last year, with everything they had to endure with injuries, is some of his best work. Then I think, and I focus on the 2 games, one at home for, the number 1 seed against Seattle, what happened in the playoffs, and I'm like, wow, is that more reality? And I say that all to say, what are your expectations of this team and how good they can be coming into this season?
Yeah, I think when you look at last year and you highlight those 2 really bad losses at the end, I don't mean to diminish what they accomplished, but that was last place schedule. And, there was a lot of, you don't really have cupcakes in the NFL, but the NFL's version of cupcakes on the schedule. And then those 2 losses were to the eventual Super Bowl champions who, exposed their weaknesses and some of the holes they were able to kind of cover up and mask, not having Fred Warner, not having Nick Bosa, Ricky Pearsall played in that playoff game, but, he clearly wasn't right. I mean, you go down the list. So I don't view those losses as Shanahan choked in these big games or anything. I think it was just like that was a diminished 49ers team throughout the season. But, you didn't really see that against teams like the Titans.
Eric Branch joining us on 95.7 The Game, covers the San Francisco 49ers for the San Francisco Chronicle. And you mentioned a guy there, Ricky Pearsall, who went down, and at least from the reports, it seems like he aggravated the same PCL that he hurt last season that kept him out for quite a bit of the year. I mean, at this point, until proven otherwise, is it fair to label him injury prone? And what do you think we can realistically expect from him? This is now another year that feels like it's already starting off on the wrong foot, and people have high expectations. When he's been on the field, he's been really good. But what can you tell us about Ricky Pearsall and what happened yesterday?
Yeah, I've always kind of people say, Pearsall can't get on the field. It's like, well, okay, well, his first, for 6 games of his career, he couldn't get on the field because he was, shot through the chest. So, so I don't put that as far as injury prone, but now his second year, he was sidelined, for much of it with this knee injury, and it is. Let me just say, when the team tells you that there's concern and they're exploring their options and acknowledges, his knee swelling traces to the same injury he had last year, that is not good. So, surgery, that was never said, but I think you can draw the logical conclusion that's certainly on the table. And, what that means for his availability in the early part of the season or even deeper, it's certainly in question. So, when you get, in addition to the knee injury, which has been the biggest thing, he started his first 2 training camps the previous 2 years on injury list because of hamstring strains. He's had shoulder issues, shoulder sublations that stem from his time at Arizona State. So there have been, easy to say, little things, but other things that have, kept him off the field. Some of it has just been throughout, training camps or whatever, not actually missing game time. But it, in the larger picture, it's like, some guys' bodies are just not built for this. Saying that he didn't miss a game, in college in Florida and Arizona State. And John Lynch always says, he started off his NFL career, he couldn't stay healthy, and then, he was able to string through a whole bunch of seasons where he largely was. So, anyway, that's a long answer, and I guess to answer it is say, he's certainly nearing the point of where he could be labeled injury prone. But the fact is, it doesn't seem like he's going to be back on a practice field and perhaps not a game field anytime soon.
Wow. Eric, let me ask you this. How have the rookies performed so far? Anybody we should be on the lookout for, or any surprises?
Well, I would say it's really tough to evaluate because they haven't had their first padded practice. Obviously the sessions in the spring, but the same thing. So it's kind of more like flag football, and so it's not the real thing. So I've learned, through the years, not to make snap judgments at this time of the year. Having said that, Deshaun Stribling looks really good and very comfortable, and just nothing they didn't know from watching him, his college tape, but pretty unique or special, kind of skill set as far as the size and the speed and the hands. And then you add, we really haven't seen his blocking, but he's known for being an excellent blocker, which is a huge thing for the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. And then the other things, that supposedly he brings to the table as far as from a character and leadership standpoint. So, we shall see if that continues, but he's been, very impressive. And Kalen Black, he was obviously a very controversial 3rd-round pick. A lot of draft experts thought he was, a 5th-round type guy. In that caution I said about these being non-padded practices particularly holds true with running backs. But having said that, he has some, real juice. And so it'll be interesting to see how that, translates once the pads come on.
Let me ask you this, because I got to be careful here, because Wilks got his, the Niners defense went to the Super Bowl, but, there was some controversy with him. But based on what you've seen, and you mentioned not much at camp, how confident are you in Raheem Morris leading this defense after Robert Saleh?
Well, I think that's a really interesting storyline to follow, because really since 2017, it's been the same defense. Obviously, they've tweaked it. They added the wide 9, but it has been, the 4-3, and this looks, different. Now, it remains to be seen, if what they're doing right now in camp is going to be, 90% of what they do, during a game or somewhat, far less. But, it looking initially like a lot of 5-man fronts, and a lot of kind of those guys moving just before the snap to kind of create confusion as far as the offensive line and their assignment. So, we will see. Renato Green spoke yesterday, the cornerback, saying, there's a lot more press coverage, and the Niners are known for playing a lot of zone. And so, I don't know. Again, having gone through a training camp or two, sometimes, you don't want to read too much into what players say. And, the new defense coordinator is always great and, better than what they've done in the past. And Renato Green said all that. He said, this is simplified, and they're being asked to do things that are, possible. So it sounded like a little bit of a slap at Robert Saleh. I don't know if that was intended, but anyway, I do think it's safe to say it will look different than the 49ers defenses, from 2017 to 2025.